Hi, welcome to our South American Explorations panel, part 2. My name is Jane Poon, and I'll be moderating the panel on behalf of SIX today. We're very fortunate to have a great lineup of speakers, and if I could ask our distinguished guests to maybe give a small wave, a hello, when I say your name so that everyone knows who you are, that would be great. So today we have Nick Appleyard, President and CEO of TriStar Gold, David Stein, President and Director of Kuya Silver, Thomas Larson, CEO of Eloro Resources. Our panel discussion is going to run approximately 20 to 30 minutes, and then we are going to open up the floor for questions. As a reminder to our attendees, you can submit questions in the right-hand side in a Q&A section at any point during our discussion. Without further ado, let's start with some introductions. So going clockwise again, from my vantage point, let's start with Nick. In 3 minutes, can you please briefly describe your company and introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me here, Jane. It's Nick Appleyard. I'm originally a geologist from Australia. I've been working now since 1995 in South America. Currently CEO and president of TriStar Gold, and our flagship project is in central Brazil. We've been advancing that for the last 5 years. Pretty happy with where we've been going so far, and I think it's our skill set, where we try and specialize is in going from discovery to a production decision. That's our strength, and that's what we do, and that's where we've been taking Castelo de Sonhos.
All right, thank you, David.
Hi, thanks for having me today. So I'm David Stein. I'm actually now, after we closed our RTO a few days ago, I'm now the president and CEO of Kuya Silver. We are actually going public tomorrow. It will be our first day of trading. So ticker symbol KUYA, Kuya. So Kuya, we have our flagship is the Bethania Silver Project in Peru, central Peru. It's a recently past producing mine that we're looking at expanding and reactivating, over the next year or so. So our focus is really to, become a low cost silver producer very quickly. And we, while we're doing that, we'll be doing lots of exploration as well to increase our resources. But that's our focus.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, David.
Thanks.
Over to you, Thomas.
Yeah, hi, Jane. Tom Larson here. Basically, formerly a stockbroker back in the 80s, have been very, very much involved in a few of these venture mining companies, one being Champion Minerals that I started in 2006, and currently involved with a company called Eloro Resources. We are primarily involved. We have two projects, world-class projects, we believe. One in southern Bolivia called Isca in the Department of Potosí. And then our other project is in north central Peru in the Department of Ancash, and that's called the La Victoria Project. So we're basically an emerging growth company, obviously trying to enhance asset growth, and basically, from the standpoint of doing quite a bit of drilling. We're in the midst of a drilling campaign at Isca currently. So just aggressively moving forward on these two projects.
Great. So let's start with the first question I want us to talk about today. Since we're talking about South American exploration, I'd like to know why your country and your district that your company is working on, why is that a favorable and prospective mining jurisdiction? Let's start in the same order again, Nick.
All right, yeah, so we're in Pará State, Brazil, and I think for us, I actually did a management takeover into TriStar, and when we did our due diligence, the focus on that was, can you build a mine in this location? So looked at the federal government, obviously, but then the state and the region. And Pará State's got this long history of mining. It's a mining state. It's probably the preeminent mining state in Brazil right now. The environmental agency, the mining agencies are very responsive. They're very good to work with. They've got very transparent regulations. And so for us, there's been no holdups at all over the last 5 years of moving forward on this project. And we don't see any as it keeps going further forward. And then on top of that, so we've got the agency, you've got the government behind you, and then on top of that, we've got infrastructure, everything we need. We're right next to a highway, right next to power lines. And these are all things I think a lot of people underestimate their importance of, being close to infrastructure, having the government, it's like a wind at your back, or it can be in your face, and it's much better at your back. So for me, that's what I really love about Pará State is, you've got the government on your side, promoting mining, wanting sensible, professional, well-run mines being developed in their state. And then on top of that, we're in a great location within that state, next to a highway. We're already on grid power. We're not in a national park, so there's no red flags on the permitting side. So, for an experienced professional agency, it should be a fairly easy decision to move this project forward. So for me, that's the answer here.
How about you, David?
So our mine and our project is located in Huancavelica department in Peru. The departments are basically like the equivalent of states or provinces. Although we are actually closer to a major city that's in the department to the north of us, Junín. We're about a 3-hour drive away from Huancayo, which is a city of about 500,000 people. So it'd be it's either the 5th or 6th largest city in Peru. So it's a major city. We're about 170 kilometers from Lima as the crow flies. So, almost right in the center there. The area that we're in is mining country in Peru. Central Peru is really known for especially these polymetallic mines. So silver, lead, zinc, sometimes copper and gold as well. And there's sort of a string of them that run essentially parallel with the Andes Mountains in our area. We've got lots of other public mining companies around us, within, 50 to several hundred kilometers away. There's several other mines in the area, plus lots of other privates, Peruvian mines. So it's a really good area to be in within Peru. Peru can be very regional. It's a big and diverse country. And certainly, you can't paint the whole country with the same brush, but in our area, we're very fortunate because we are a past producing mine as well. We have pretty decent infrastructure, and we've got, in particular, some nice roads that go right to the site. So that's going to make things easier when we look to expand and redevelop.
Great, Thomas?
Yeah, so we have, again, 2 projects. One in Bolivia, which we became involved with. We signed a definitive agreement in January of this year, 2020. And fortunately, we were able to have Mike on, Charlie Marawi, a senior economic geologist, fly down just before COVID set in and complete the 43101 report. So that was very, very helpful. So we have been really focusing in on our Bolivian project, Isca. And this is situated in sort of the eastern Cordillera belt in the department of Potosí. The region of Potosí is very well known from the standpoint of a mining destination. You have the likes of San Cristobal, which is run by Sumitomo, Pan American Silver's project, the San Vicente, about 40, 50 kilometers away from us. We're all in the same mineralized corridor. Isca. It's a 9 square kilometer, 8 square kilometer property. It's again, what we believe to be a silver polymetallic, primarily silver polymetallic potential deposit. There have been underground workings that have been modernized from colonial days. But one other point, in this area, you have a company or a project called Cerro Rico, which was deemed as the largest silver mine in the world. It started up back in the 16th, 17th century. They produced over 2.5 billion ounces of silver. So we're in that sort of area. I'm certainly not saying that we're going to find 2.5 billion ounces of silver, but we're off to a good start with our underground maiden drilling campaign at Isca. I have a very good team The reason we're in Bolivia is through the efforts of a fellow called Dr. Osvaldo Arque, who was president of the Bolivian Geological Association for many years, from 2010 to 2019. His father was a national manager for Comabol, which is a state-controlled mining arm of Bolivia. And Bolivia has always had a bit of a knock, I think, over the last few years with, the Socialist Party MAS, run by Evo Morales, coming in. And but even under his regime, he's been ousted. There is an election October 18th. We'll see what happens there. But whoever gets in, I mean, with Osvaldo and the way he, his respect and being a Bolivian, we are working very closely under his guidance. One big thing for us is that ISCA is privately owned, so we're not involved with Comabol per se. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just that we are dealing with a private owner, which has been very helpful, and it has allowed us to, commence with our maiden drilling campaign. So we're quite pleased. The other project in Peru is the La Victoria project. We did a drilling campaign. I find in Peru, it's somewhat bureaucratic for good reason. I mean, they're very protective. It's a fantastic mining center. But it does take time to get your permitting. And so we've had, whereas we moved in quickly on our Bolivian project, we have had some issues with our most favored area of our property, San Marquito, which is up at about 4,000 meters. This is, we're up near Trujillo, about a 6-hour drive from Trujillo inland. And we've had some issues with the community, with the former president. He's no longer there. And we've hired a fellow called Andre Recalde, who works with David, who's been helpful with us in getting things sorted out with the community so that we can drill our target areas in San Marquito. So, I mean, that's where we sit right now.
All right, thank you for that detailed explanation, Thomas. I think it's interesting that you bring up COVID-19 because I think that's something that is really impacted everyone's daily lives right now and is quite top of mind. I mean, we see it every day on the news. So I'd be curious to know, Nick, David, and Thomas, if you'd like to elaborate some more, how has COVID-19 really impacted some of your projects and the day-to-day operations? Nick?
Okay, yeah. So we, I guess the direct impact on us, we probably lost about 3 months of work in the field where we shut down. There were some regional requirements that slowed work down there for probably a month or so, but because there was no COVID in the area, we took the responsible attitude that we're not going to be moving people in and out and be responsible for bringing it in. So, so we stayed out of the region until that sort of the virus was under control in the area. So we had 3 months of field work lost, but it wasn't really. We tried to then make a benefit of that. We just completed 20,000 meters of drilling, which we had all the results coming in. So our geologists and staff were working through that, analyzing those results. We were actually working with some artificial intelligence on that, doing things that we probably wouldn't have time to have done if we hadn't had the COVID break, so to speak. And now we've got a lot more information out of our work, and now we're back. We started drilling again last week, and we're better armed. We've now got the results from the last program. We've got the artificial intelligence analysis of those results and all of that data. And, we're really excited about where we're going. So even though we lost a few months in the field, I don't feel like the project has lost anything, and we potentially even gained it. And then just in the region, as I said, the Pará state government are very sort of pro-business, proactive, and they've been really helpful. So there's now a new hospital within 45 minutes of the project, which has 20 ICU sort of bed or intensive care style beds. I don't think we'd be full ICU, but they're allocated to very sick people initially through COVID. But that's now available to us, within half an hour to 45 minutes from the project, which is a great benefit to us. So even though life has changed a lot, where our office situations have changed, I think we've tried to take the benefit of it and do what we can and move forward. And we're really excited about what's going to be happening now that we've had a break. And it's sort of a luxury you don't usually get, to sort of have 3 months off with your drill results, to analyze the next bit and work with some very clever people to really analyze them in a way you would never have had a chance to do before. So even though there's been some negatives, we've done everything we can to extract every positive possible, and I think we're going to see the benefits of that now over the next 3 months here.
Great. It's great to hear, Nick, that you and TriStar Gold were able to take sort of a glass half empty situation to become a glass half full kind of situation. So that's really positive. Thanks for that. How about for Kuya Silver, David?
Yeah. I mean, as you guys probably know, Peru's been hit very hard with COVID-19. With us, we were a private company. Earlier on in the year, we were actually about to do some field work in March, and then basically everything was suspended and locked down. Then I guess from June onward, the Peru government has been pretty forward in terms of trying to relaunch the mining industry, because it's a big job creator in Peru and an economic engine for Peru. So they've designed ways that you can, that they want the mining companies to restart safely. And I would say most of the big ones have now, restarted operations. With us specifically, you now, and again, this isn't unique to mining, but regardless of what kind of business you're in Peru, you now need I'm not sure if it's a permit is the right word, but you need a kind of a certification that you're following, that you have a plan to follow COVID health and safety practices. So as we're in the process of taking over a private company in Peru, and so we're doing that right now, and then once we have that, then you're sort of allowed to work. So that's it. That's kind of the permitting or the regulatory side, and then the practical side is what it means for us at the Bethania mine site. Is that we really need to redesign our work flow so that it's very separate from any outsiders, essentially people who are not working or not associated with the mine, whereas previously that was less of an issue for us. We have to make sure that there's fences around all of our buildings, and that basically the only people going in and out are going to be people who are work for us, either directly for the mine or contractors, or they have gone through the right health and safety procedures, and so that will all happen over the coming months as we essentially set up the site for our future work there. It's not there right now, but that will be the goal. And as well, we'd be building a health clinic there anyway, as we start staffing up, but that becomes a much more important part of your operation going forward with COVID-19 there.
Great. Thanks, David. Good to hear all these new health and safety measures coming into place in your diligence in trying to follow through with all the regulations. Thomas, anything to add from the Laurel Resources side?
Well, I believe David's much more advanced right now with what they're doing in Peru than ourselves, because we've had to deal again with community relations in being allowed to drill. The San Marquito project. So the COVID-19, yes, from the standpoint of traveling up to our property up in Payasca, it's fairly isolated. There is infrastructure close by, but it's more of an agricultural type of community. There are mines close by. You've got Pan American Silver's, La Rena, Shawindo properties 50 kilometers north. Lagunas Norte, we have Newmont to the south. But from the standpoint of actually working and dealing with COVID-19 on the ground, we're not there yet. So that hasn't really affected us to the degree as it would if we were drilling at this stage. So we'll see when that happens. We're expecting to be drilling second quarter of 2021. So we'll certainly be more aware of what's going on in the community with COVID-19 and the regulations that we have to abide with in this crazy world. So Bolivia, however, they had a major shutdown. And so it was very difficult. because unfortunately, these countries don't have the medical systems that we have up here in Canada and, Britain and places. So they have to be very, very stringent, and there's lockdowns all the time. So Dr. Oswaldo Arce, who actually resides in Cochabamba, it took him quite some time to get down to site into Pisa. They had blockades at one point, so it was quite difficult. The advantage we have, though, again, is because it's privately owned. It's a diversified family, the Villegas family. They have a construction company as well. They're situated in the town of Tepiza, 40 kilometers south of us. They were able to get work done, like, for instance, setting up our drill bays at the mine site. So a lot of that work done, even with COVID-19. And so our team now, the drilling, we hired a company called Leduc Drillers, and so they're looking after our underground drilling. But yeah, you have to be at site from 6, I believe, until 6 a.m. until 3:30, and then you have to go back to Tepiza and basically quarantine. So they're still very strict, but we are getting work done. So that's where we sit.
Great. How about the political environment in your specific regions? Thomas, I know you touched on this a little bit as well. How about Nick? Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I sort of touched on it a little bit before, but you said we're in Pará State, and they've had it's deep historical mining region, and they're very stable, very business focused, and they've actually gotten aimed. The aim of the government when they came in, this current state government, was to become the preeminent mining jurisdiction in Brazil. At that time, Minas Gerais was probably just in front of them as far as investment into Brazil was. I believe that has now flipped, and that is now Pará State is the preeminent destination for mining in Brazil. So, as I said, it's really good that they have that benefit of a state that really wants and understands the benefit of mining and wants to do it properly. And I think that's the key for me is, these they have that state environment. They want to do it, but they also want to do it properly, because as a mining company and a responsible company, we don't want to just comply with local laws. We want to comply with international best practices globally. So it really helps us if the state understands that and wants to do that as well. And I think they do in Pará. They're improving everything. I mean, everyone's made mistakes historically, but they are working on it and trying to improve it. So that's what I really like about it. That we can come in and try and bring in global best practices, and they're supportive of that and their understanding of that, because, I think that's critical to us all. And, I think for me, that's the, sort of the largest risk factor to all of us as juniors these days, is that environmental social governance sort of license to operate, and that's going to control all our abilities to finance and be acquired and bought or whatever happens in the future. And so to have a state that works with us in improving all of that side of the company is really good.
How about you, David?
Yeah, so we're in Huancavelica department, as I mentioned before, and the way mining, I guess, regulatory procedures work in Peru is if you're a smaller mine, which is what we are at the moment, you can actually do quite a bit of permitting in your sort of home department, and then as you get bigger, you need to do everything through the central government essentially, and the vast majority runs through Lima. The vast majority of the mining regulations run through Lima, and that's sort of the way that the country's set up. We had a really good experience with working with the Department of Huancavelica. We were able to get our an environmental impact assessment done for the future mining operation. And specifically, what we need to do at our project is we're looking to build a plant. Our mine has never had its own plant facilities. It's a polymetallic ore, so we want to do concentration at site. They always had to truck the ore 50, 200, 100 kilometers away to have that done. So we can do it now at site. Is what we're looking to do, and we got the environmental permit for that. This actually just in August we finally got it. So And there definitely was a delay due to COVID. There were several months there where all the government offices were shut down, but they did reopen, and they were working through the backlog of files, and so it's it's a very good experience. I think the thing that to watch with Peru going forward is probably the federal or the nationwide political situation, and also how COVID is going to affect that. Just because it is, while the government was, I think, good at getting out in front of COVID back in March, the reality is just because of the nature of the socioeconomics of the country, and how many people couldn't really stay at home, and don't have refrigerators, or need to go and work, or working in a sort of a job where they're paid in cash every day or whatever. That caused essentially people couldn't follow the COVID stay-at-home regulations, and then you have hundreds of thousands of cases in the country. So it'll be interesting to see next year. There's an election, and to see if there's any spillover from that. I would say COVID-19 by far and away is the biggest issue in the country right now, and mining just trucks along.
Got it. Thomas, anything to add regarding the political environment in the region that you're working in?
Well, we're very active right now in Bolivia. So I'll just address that point. I think David's clearly looked after the Peruvian side of things. Again, there's an election October the 18th, and so we believe that it'll probably be a right-wing government that ends up, winning on the second ballot. You've got to win by 10% of the initial votes. So MAS, which is more of a socialist government regime, they could win the first ballot. But as long as, anyway, I have to stay apolitical no matter who comes in, but there is, on October the 18th, there will be an election. The good thing about where we are, the Department of Potosi, it has a real history of mining activity, and the people there are very open-minded when it comes to mining. But again, you obviously have to work together and be very, very conscientious in how you deal with, it's their country and we're visitors, so we act accordingly. So.
This is a good segue to our next question, actually. Speaking of working hand in hand with the local communities, I'm curious to know how involved are your respective companies with the local community? Are they a part of your projects? How are you working with them? Nick?
Okay, yeah. So we have the village of Castelo de Sonias, which is where our project gets its name, is probably 20 kilometers away, 30-minute drive, 40-minute drive from the site. So they're not part of the project, but they're intimate. They know it, they understand it, they visit it. We have labor force from there as needed. We have a very good relationship with that. We have some sort of internal guidelines on how we will help the community, and it's always healthcare and education. So right now, things have been at a lower level through the exploration development phase. So our geologists will teach in the school, or there'll be trips out to the site. And we'll be helping with the healthcare system. And obviously, as we said, with COVID now, we've got a real benefit of the new hospital coming in there. But for us, we see them as they see them as a partner for us. I think we're very lucky with the community we have close by to us, because they are a sort of a new community. It's a newer town. It's only probably 20, 30 years old. So it's not like a place with deep roots and many generations, and, that they went there for farming and for mining. And so that's the style of people they are. So, we're in a farming community now, but farmers who understand mining and they understand primary industry. They can work on heavy equipment. They can drive trucks and stuff. It's really handy, but they do understand what we're doing. And so they're not going to be, massively concerned about a well-run mine 20 kilometers away. So I think that's our goal, is to make sure they are well enough informed and they're open. We have them out to the mine site regularly, or the project site regularly, and our geologists, and we have a house in the town. So it's very friendly, very good relationship. But our job is to maintain that relationship and make sure they know that what's coming is going to be a very well-run, good mine, which will be a source of labor and a source of growth and sustainability for that village. And so that's our job moving forward. And I think probably our biggest job and most critical job of every company is to maintain that social license.
Great. David?
In our case, we have one community that would have sort of jurisdiction over our mine, called the Proche community. The way the way it works in Peru is, there's certain communities, I guess, all across the Andes, and unless you're in a big city, there'll be some community that has the jurisdiction over the surface rights, over the land use, and so that's an important part of life in Peru, and you can, depending on the size of your project, you could possibly be in more than one jurisdiction. In our cases, we're just dealing with one community, and in terms of this community, it's a very small population. It's only a few dozen people in total. They were there and sort of actively involved with the mining operation when it was going up until 2016. So our job really, or what we're doing right now is we're in sort of a process to sort of re-engage, make sure that we do know that when a new, especially Canadian company takes over, they're going to expect more from us than a private, Peruvian company. So we're working with them, and it's been a very good experience so far. I mean, we in Peru, you need your local community to approve your EIA. Essentially, you do it through these community meetings and stuff. I don't know how we would do it today, frankly, with COVID. Maybe you can do it virtually, but we did all our community meetings back in 2019, and fortunately, and got that all done, approved by the community. They've given us rights to surface rights to use the land where the plant's going to be, the tailing storage, etc. So all that's been essentially worked. We work hand in hand with the community on all those little jobs that are very important. And I mean, at the end of the day, we want to make the area a better place for them and for everybody.
That's a great goal to have, David. How about you, Thomas?
Well, I mean, in regard to our Peru property in the Department of Ancash, we've been involved since 2015, 16, or at least Eloro has been involved. It was formerly owned by a company called Laurel Resources, Mark Appleby, who picked the project up in 2010-11. They did a great job putting the package together. We came in and JV'd it, and now we own it outright. However, it's a 90 square kilometer property. So yeah, we do encompass 2 or 3 communities in that. We did a drilling campaign back in 2 years ago in Rafina, which is in the southern area, like around, I believe it's around 3,200 meters, but in a valley. So topography was quite extreme. So we did a small drilling campaign. The ownership there was privately owned by the local people of Huandaval. So that was fairly, I mean, it took time, but that was fairly easy to obtain licensed drilling permits and such. But in regard to our more favored area further up in the system, it's an epithermal low sulfidation type system we're dealing with at La Victoria. Higher up in the Altiplano, where it's more flat lying, is the San Marquito area, but that area is owned by the community itself. So we have to deal with the community. It's their property. They have the surface rights. We have the mining rights. They have the surface rights, or mineral rights we have. So that's where it's been a bit of an issue. We've been there, soccer teams and monies for Christmas, and, health, sending monies for any health issues that they might need from us. So we've had a presence there for a number of years, and we have a good relationship. And I do believe that we will be active in San Marquito shortly with the efforts of like Andres Recalde and our team that have been down there working hard, getting making sure they understand that we're not affecting their water supply, doing independent studies and such. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to working with the community of San Marquito, the people there. They're such great people, nice people. But right now we're just, we have to get the permit, the land purchase rental agreement sorted out, which we're close to doing. In Bolivia, again, privately owned, so in a district friendly environment, and so we've been very fortunate with the owner, the Villegas family, because basically they own the property. We're earning into it. Like we basically have 4.5 years to decide whether we want to acquire Isca or not. And in the event that we do, it's a flat 10 million US payment to the family. But there's no gun to our head right now as to having to spend money, within 6 months and this and that. So COVID hasn't affected us in that regard. So, and to be blunt, I haven't been there yet. We were planning to fly down, but again, with COVID in February. So I'm really looking forward to when we can visit to Pisa, the old Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid jurisdiction where they passed away. But anyway, yeah, looking forward to meeting them.
All right, great. Thanks for that, Thomas. Just before we move into the Q&A section with the audience, I just have one last question. The question is, what sets you apart from other juniors that are operating in South America now? Nick?
Okay, I mean, there's a lot of good companies out there, so I mean, it's a good choice. But I think where we can be different is right now there's some excitement in exploration. We've got 2 drill rigs on site right now, and another one coming in a couple of weeks. So we'll have 3 rigs working on exploration growth, and we've got some really exciting targets that we're going to be hitting. So we've got exploration excitement, but underlying all of that, we've got a pre-feasibility study which is going to complete early next year, which is adding substantial value. So it's like we've got a base that we're taking off from. It's not pure exploration with all the associated risk. It seems, so for me, it's lower risk, because you've got a base, you've got something real. It's PFS, there's permitting activities going on towards production of a good scale mine. Our PEA had 140,000 ounces a year. So for me, that's the difference. It's not just exploration, but we have got that exploration excitement going on right now. And we've got the PFS, which is a solid base, which on its own is going to be very exciting and add significant value.
Excellent. David?
Yeah, so that's a tough question, just because again, there's so many companies, big and small, all over South America. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I would say our what sets us apart is the fact that we are a silver dominated company, near-term producer. I'm not sure I can think of another company that, like us at the moment. There certainly have been in the past. Pan American started off the same way with a high-grade mine in Peru back in the mid-90s, First Majestic in Mexico. But in terms of where companies today, I think we're kind of unique in that sense that we've got near-term production in and a silver dominated mining project.
Great. And finally, Thomas?
I mean, we're basically a unique emerging resource company in that we have 2 highly leveraged, untested, potentially large scale silver gold projects in world-class mineralized regions, being Peru and Bolivia. So I mean, there are a lot of exploration companies and very well-run exploration and development companies out there. I think maybe our uniqueness is that we have 2 potential properties that could do really well in 2 jurisdictions, 2 different countries side by side, Bolivia. Really excited about the next few months.
Great. Now, let's look at some of the questions that have come in from our audience members. First of all, the first question will be for David. for Kuya Silver. I've had a lot of questions come in, a lot of excitement about Kuya getting listed. So the question is, once you're public, what will the total issued and outstanding share count be? And are you still on track to get listed tomorrow? And could you repeat your ticker again so they can find it and invest?
So yes, we're listing tomorrow. Ticker is KUYA. We're on the Canadian Stock Exchange. So KUYA is our ticker, Kuya. And issued and outstanding shares, it's about 32.3 million, I think.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
The next question is for TriStar. Leo wants to know, could you talk a little bit about your current drill program?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got, as I said, we're going to have 3 drill rigs. We initially, got a plan for the rest of this year of like 12,000 meters that we'll want to complete before Christmas. The aim of that is to do the little bit we want to finish out in the PFS. We need, we've got a few things we wanted to get done there, but not a lot. And then we've probably got 8 to 10 exploration targets. So we want to get a few holes into each of them so that then when we finish the Christmas break, straight after Christmas, we get back in and hit where the result, and follow the results as they've come out of those exploration targets. And for us, our exploration targets range from almost step out, where it's, more of the same and fairly low risk exploration, to conceptual targets on a big body, which is going to be high risk, high return if it hits, but you don't know, and everything in between. So it's like I said, it's an exciting time. 3 rigs and 2 of them RC, so which means we drill fast and get results really quick. So those results start flowing next month. Now we started drilling the beginning of last week, and it's going to be really interesting because we feel like we've just touched the corner of this asset, and we want to really unlock the full value of it now.
Following up to that, Rama wants to know, this is for Nick, in addition to the 20,000 meter drilling campaign you completed, how much more drilling will you need to complete for a pre-feasibility study? Will that be published by March 2021? Okay,
so the last bit first. The PFS, I can't see it be done by March. I think it'll be April, May. That'll be the best guess. As for the drilling required, we have to get 3 additional geotech holes in. That's the sort of formal requirement that has to get done. On top of that, we're opportunistically, like I said, we've analyzed the drilling. We got results from earlier in the year, and obviously we found spots where we can add on nicely. So we're going to be opportunistically putting a few more holes in where we can and where we want to. So, but there's 3 holes that we have to get in for the geotech results for the pit wall stability work.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick. Here's another question from Leo, this time for Thomas. When can we expect results?
Oh, boy. Thanks. I think basically we started our campaign, our drilling campaign, maiden campaign, about 4 or 5 weeks ago now. We're basically on the 6th hole. So we do have the 1st and 2nd hole that has been, everything was analyzed at our core shack site in Tepiza, core, the logging, and then sent to our prep lab with ALS in Aurora, Bolivia. And then the pulps from there will be flown to Lima, to the ALS lab in Lima. And I believe they're there now, the first set of samples. So, I would probably assume in the next couple of weeks, there might be some results, but then it'll trickle through over the next 6-7 weeks. It's a 3,500 meter drilling campaign, but let's take a look at the initial results first before we decide, where we're going to go. So yeah, probably in a couple of weeks, we'll probably start releasing a few results.
Excellent. We'll keep an eye out on that in the next couple of weeks. Here's a question for everybody. Jeff wants to know, how much ownership does management hold? And then are there any other large investors involved that you could share? We'll start with Nick.
Okay, so management and directors directly, we hold, I believe, 12% of the company. And sort of if you throw in friends and family, it's closer to 22, 25%. Largest shareholders are US Global, Gold 2000, RBC, and we had a big investment from Royal Gold last year, was they acquired a royalty from us. So they're a significant stakeholder, I'd say. So.
David?
So management owns 28% of Kuya. And in terms of notable investors, we have Eric Sprott as an investor, invested in Kuya privately, and is still one of our largest investors. And Commodity Capital is a fund in Toronto. They're a big holder as well.
Great. And finally, Thomas?
Management, directors, management, 35% of the ownership, shares outstanding. Probably our major, one of our largest shareholders. It's a global macro asset fund based out of Denver, Colorado, called Crescat Capital. They have just over 9%, maybe a bit more now. Also, Champion Iron have a share position, and I'm a fairly large shareholder myself. And Tartazan, the predecessor owner of the Peruvian project, they have around 4 million shares. So that's basically it out of the 47 million outstanding.
Thank you, everyone. I've got a number of questions here, specifically for Kuya Silver, David. A lot of questions about when are you going to start mining, and then when you do, what do you need to get started in terms of capital, labor, equipment, etc.
Okay, so I'll try and answer all that together. So, the plan is to, push forward with development over the next year. If everything goes according to plan, we could be in production by late next year, early 2020, full production early 2022 would be the goal. There's a few things that could affect that, including timing of financing, which I'll talk about in a sec, and also there's weather. There's certain times of the year when we don't want to start certain activities, but otherwise, it's not a big project, to be honest. It's not going to take that long to build it. The total capex for the whole expansion project, again, this is our internal estimate. So we don't have a PEA or PFS or anything like that at this point, but our internal estimate is about 10 million US. So that would include the plant, the tailings, and the underground development. In terms of what specifics we need, labor, we will need labor. We'll ramp that up gradually, probably as the mine construction or the plant construction gets underway next year. But we are plugged into the region where, there is a lot of other mining activity, et cetera. So I think, labor is going to be widely available. In terms of equipment, power, that kind of thing. So equipment, our mine it's a narrow vein, high grade, very high grade mine. So the equipment we will be acquiring some equipment, like a few jack legs and stuff from the previous mine owners, but there's probably some minor equipment that we will need next year, but again, it's not material. And, power, right now the mines run on diesel gensets, and that's how we will start in 2021. We do have a plan, or we would like to, in the longer term, and this might be, the following year, connect up with the hydro grid. You probably wouldn't do it if you were only going to be there for a few years. But I think we're convinced that there's going to be a very, very long mine life here, and that we're going to be there for a long time. So it is worth doing the additional capex, perhaps in 2022 to hook up to the hydro grid, and then we'll get cleaner, cheaper power that way, more consistent power. Anything I missed?
Okay, thanks.
Let me know.
I don't think so. We do have a bunch of follow-up questions. A question from Jeffrey for you, David. Do you need to wait for completion of a mill? How long will it take to build a mill if you need it?
Yeah, actually, okay, and then I think I saw another question about doing toll milling again. Someone asked if we would do that, so I'll answer that all together. So the mill, I mean, once we have all the equipment and all the financing lined up, it's probably 6 months of actual construction time, and then another few months of commissioning. So that's the order of magnitude of what we'd be looking at. Going back into a toll milling situation and paying those additional trucking and toll milling costs is not something I'm really a big fan of. If we do get like really crazy high silver prices over the short term, then I think we'd have to look at it. We would look at it. I mean, we'll obviously make those are financial decisions, by and large. But at this stage, it's probably not worth doing. We'll make a lot more money and a better return by just getting the plant up and running as fast as possible. But yeah, I mean, if, again, in an extraordinary circumstance, it could be possible to toll mill again and to generate some cash flow that way.
Thank you, David. Here's a question from Ernst. This is for everyone. These are, you all seem to be operations and companies where Dr. Clinton Hanna is involved. So could you talk a little bit about his role and how he works with you? Maybe we'll start with Nick.
Okay, yeah, Quentin's an independent director of ours. It's great to have him on the board. He's a great geologist. As a non-independent, non-executive director, he doesn't really have, that way he has no day-to-day involvement. I find him brilliant to sort of bounce ideas geologically off and chat about the paleoplacer component of CDS. So it's great having him there because he is a brilliant geologist. But he doesn't have any other day-to-day involvement with us other than as a very good independent director. Got
it. How about for Kuya Silver, David?
So he came over. He was a director of Miramont, actually the chairman of Miramont. We nominated him to be the chair of Kuya Silver. When we closed, but he'll be essentially an indendependent chair. Kind of same as Nick. I mean, I really like bouncing ideas off of him. My background is geologist as well, way back when. Right now, to be honest, as we're building up our team, we are a little light on that front internally. Having, myself and then Quentin's even more experienced than I am, of course, but, having that access to him and, is going to really help out, I would say, especially in the first year or so. While we're, essentially setting up our team and finding the right people for that. I mean, Kuya has until recently been very more mining engineering focused, and that's really our strength. And our guys in Peru that we've been working with for the past 3 years are more on the mining engineering side and metallurgy. So having that a really strong geological board, including Quentin, is going to be really good for us going forward.
Great. And how do you work with Quentin, Thomas?
Well, Quentin and I first met via phone call about 3 or 4 months ago through a mutual friend of ours based out of Lausanne, Switzerland. And this particular fellow had a lot of interest in Bolivia from the Apex Silver days with Tom Kaplan and Larry Buchanan. So when he found out about Eloro being involved, he thought, I'm a good friend of Quentin. Let's just see what Quentin has to say about this project. And so that was how I was introduced to him, and just his track record and when he explains things, he was a math teacher, very simple sort of way of explaining, but incredibly bright and knowledgeable. And so we're very fortunate to have him. He's an advisor to our company. And he works well with Dr. Bill Pearson, our chief technical advisor, who in his own right, very, very accomplished geoscientist, along with Dr. Osvaldo Arque, and again, the Micon group, who I have a lot of respect for. So we do have a pretty good bench, we have some bench strength, to say the least, when it comes to our technical exploration team, which is what Eloro is all about, trying to find, world-class deposits like all of us are. So yeah, Quentin has been most helpful. He introduced us to Crescat Capital in Denver, who became a shareholder and helped with our, underwriting our initial drill campaign that was in our 43-101. So yeah, he's been fantastic.
Great, thank you for that. I think that's all the time we have for questions. Before we wrap, though, I do want to ask one final question for our audience members. What does it take for a junior to be successful in South America? Let's start with Nick.
Be successful in South America. I think the ESG stuff is the most important. If you lose that social license to operate, you'll never get it back. You can, you can make a $20,000 mistake and you can spend $10 million trying to fix it. So understanding that risk and I think it's understanding all the risks outside of the core mining risks. I think all of us understand metallurgy and resource estimation and exploration drilling, but it's understanding the risks outside of that, the ESG and infrastructure. So I would say that's it. Environmental, social, and infrastructure. And understanding them, and you got a good leg up.
Thanks, Nick. David?
I think South America itself is a very varied place. And I know we tend to lump it all together, but that's not really fair. The individual countries and even the regions within the countries can be vastly different. Nick is completely right. ESG is extremely important. That's not unique to South America, but it is extremely important, in our operations. And I think, at the end of the day, I guess depending on what your strategy is, if you're more, exploration focused or you're more, production focused, in our case, I think, we're sort of taking over, from a mine that has had some history, and we just want, our attitude is we want to make it better, better for the community, better for, in terms of understanding what's there, and ultimately the production that we can achieve from that deposit. And so that's the way we're looking at it. And then, and then with that success, hopefully then we can go and do it again. And, and certainly, South America could be, a great place for, for multiple mines for us. So that, it's not an easy question because it can be so different. But, I think, that's what can make you successful is if you know what your plan is and you basically, try and follow it.
Thanks, David. Thomas?
Again, we're more focused exploration, development at our stage, primarily right now in Bolivia. I still believe Bolivia has it's somewhat overlooked. I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit still there, especially in our area. But again, you have to be really, really associated closely to someone like a Dr. Osvaldo Arque when you're dealing in these types of jurisdictions, and really listen to what, and his protocols of, primarily doing the right thing with community and respecting these people. And, that's just basically how we try and, how we try and move forward, especially in Bolivia. Just try and be respectful.
All right, thank you very much, Thomas. I think that's it for today. We're coming to the end of our time together. I want to thank all of our speakers. Thank you, Nick, David, Thomas, for taking time out of your busy schedules and also sharing all of your insight on what you're doing in South America and really what makes this such a great jurisdiction to work in. Everyone in the audience, thank you for your questions. If you didn't get a chance for your questions to be answered, I saw a lot of great questions come in that unfortunately we weren't able to get to. Please reach out to any of our speakers today. There's also a short survey after this summit, so you can leave your contact details and the teams will reach out to you directly so that they can answer any more questions that you have. Well, that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, Jane.